North Korea has emerged as Russia's leading ally in the full-scale war against Ukraine, providing not only ballistic missiles and artillery ammunition but also troops. The two countries signed a defense agreement in June, which requires each state to provide military assistance to the other in the event of an attack. As a result, Pyongyang has sent thousands of troops to support the Russian army, including to the Kursk border region, where Ukrainian forces seized territory earlier this year. North Korea's military forces are effectively involved in the war against Ukraine. North Korean troops deployed to the front lines to fight alongside Russian forces are being used as cannon fodder. According to NATO and Western military officials, Moscow is recruiting at least 20,000 new troops every month to bolster its war effort. On average, more than 1,000 Russian soldiers are killed or wounded every day. Furthermore, Russia is now sending both its own and North Korean troops to the front lines without proper training. The soldiers fighting in Russia's ranks are not only inexperienced but also not battle-tested. In response to mounting casualties, Pyongyang is reportedly preparing to deploy additional troops to support Russia's war effort. North Korean soldiers sent to fight alongside Russian troops in Ukraine have suffered heavy casualties since they first entered the front lines. Reports indicate that North Korean troops who have recently clashed with Ukrainian forces have sustained over 1,000 casualties. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated after a meeting of the Supreme Command's Chief of Staff that the number of North Korean soldiers killed or wounded in the Kursk region has exceeded 3,000. Zelensky warned that North Korea might send additional troops and military equipment to the Russian army, adding that they would respond decisively. Preliminary reports suggest that the number of North Korean servicemen killed and wounded in the Kursk region has surpassed 3,000. According to recent reports, North Korea is planning to send around 100,000 additional troops to support Russia in its war against Ukraine. The South Korean military reported that North Korea is preparing to deploy more troops and send additional equipment to Russia to aid Moscow's war effort after nearly 1,100 soldiers were killed, as reported by Seoul News Agency. The deployment of additional North Korean troops and the transfer of more weapons to Russia is crucial because mobilizing more troops could prolong the war with Ukraine and delay peace talks. Moreover, the arrival of additional weapons could cause more casualties and infrastructure damage in Ukraine, potentially forcing Kyiv to change tactics to counter both Russian and North Korean forces. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, JCS, stated that no signs of provocation have been detected from North Korea, which is focused on expanding military cooperation with Russia. Deploying additional troops to be trained by Russian forces and gaining combat experience on the front lines would further this goal, as North Korean troops have not seen combat since the Korean War ended in 1953. The JCS also reported that North Korea is not only planning to deploy additional troops but may also send suicide drones to assist Russia in its war against Ukraine. Kim Jong-un is said to have observed tests of several suicide drones last month and demanded their mass production. Kim emphasized the importance of kamikaze drones in modern warfare, as they are cheap and easy to manufacture. Multiple intelligence sources indicate that North Korea is preparing to increase or rotate its troop numbers in Russia. Currently, there are signs that North Korea is procuring 240mm rocket launchers and 170mm self-propelled guns, and may soon begin producing and supplying suicide drones. Kim Jong-un's inspection in November highlighted the growing focus on these weapons. According to South Korean intelligence, North Korea is likely planning to send additional troops to Russia and procure military equipment, including kamikaze drones. Pyongyang is also procuring 240mm salvo launchers and 170mm artillery for the war against Ukraine. It remains to be seen whether North Korea will send more troops to Russia and how this will affect the war's outcome. In this context, Ukrainian President Zelensky emphasized the importance of the global community understanding that the risk of destabilization on the Korean peninsula, as well as in neighboring regions and waters, is growing in proportion to the expanding cooperation between Moscow and Pyongyang. The transfer of modern combat experience and military technologies from Russia poses a global threat. Zelensky stated, "For the world, the cost of ensuring stability is always much higher than the cost of effectively putting pressure on those who destabilize the situation and destroy lives." According to reports, at least 60% of the munitions used by Russia in its attacks on Ukraine are supplied by North Korea. Satellite imagery shows that North Korea is increasingly supplying ammunition to Russia and expanding its weapons production to support the Russian Federation. Andriy Kovalenko, commander of the Ukrainian Defense Forces and head of the CPD, stated that 60% of the artillery and mortar shells used by Russia in Ukraine come from Pyongyang. Satellite imagery also reveals that North Korea has expanded its Hwasong-11 ballistic missile production complex, which Russia has used to attack Ukraine. According to information from Washington and Seoul, North Korea has shipped about 20,000 containers of ammunition to Russia, including 122mm and 152mm artillery shells, as well as advanced Hwasong-11 ballistic missiles. It is reported that nearly 200 munitions factories are currently operating at full capacity in North Korea. Russia is providing fuel and equipment to help maintain weapons production in Pyongyang. The question remains, why are North Korean troops suffering such heavy losses in Ukraine? North Korean soldiers face heavy casualties while fighting for Russia, and their continued involvement in the conflict raises concerns about the future impact on both North Korea and Ukraine. For years, North Korea's military has helped leader Kim Jong-un keep his people in check and provide a buffer against the country's sworn enemy, South Korea. With 1.3 million members, the North's army is among the largest conventional armed forces in the world. Now, with more than 11,000 North Korean troops fighting alongside Russian forces against Ukraine, it is playing a more prominent role in Kim Jong-un's geopolitical strategy to gain much-needed cash and diplomatic clout. Seoul's military authorities reported that, through various intelligence sources, they assessed that around 1,100 casualties have occurred among North Korean forces engaged in combat with Ukrainian troops. The Joint Chiefs of Staff, JCS, stated, "Through various information and intelligence sources, we assessed that North Korean troops that recently engaged in combat with Ukrainian forces have suffered about 1,100 casualties." This striking statistic points to the significant losses North Korea has suffered in trying to support Russia's military efforts during the protracted conflict. Intelligence estimates indicate that there are currently around 12,000 North Korean troops deployed to Russia, many of whom have been integrated into operations in the Ukrainian theater, particularly in the disputed Kursk border region. According to the JCS, North Korea is reportedly preparing for the rotation or additional deployment of these troops, underscoring Pyongyang's continued commitment to strengthening its military ties with Moscow. Notably, North Korea is not only sending troops but also providing military hardware to assist Russia's combat operations. Reports indicate the production and supply of self-destructing drones and advanced artillery systems, including 240mm rocket launchers and 170mm self-propelled artillery units. North Korea has been aiming to modernize its conventional warfare capabilities based on combat experience gained from the Ukraine engagement, the JCS noted, emphasizing that this is a strategic imperative for Kim Jong-un's military leadership. This cooperation offers North Korea the potential to both test and improve its military capabilities. The evolving relationship between North Korea and Russia has attracted considerable attention, especially after the signing of a groundbreaking defense pact between the countries earlier this year. Experts suggest that Kim Jong-un sees the conflict not only as an opportunity for military engagement but also as leverage to secure advanced weapons and military technology from Moscow, which could significantly bolster North Korea's own military ambitions. Casualty reports highlight the challenges faced by North Korean troops, who have been described as unprepared for combat under unusual circumstances, including drones and mobile warfare tactics widely used by Ukrainian forces. The troops deployed by North Korea are from the Stone Corps, one of the military's best trained and most heavily brainwashed special forces. However, according to South Korea's National Intelligence Service, they were ill-prepared for drone strikes and unfamiliar terrain far from their isolated homeland. North Korea's special forces, trained mainly for sniper missions, urban warfare, and infiltrations from sea, air, and Korea's many mountains, did not receive adequate training for drone and trench warfare, primarily conducted on open, flat terrain such as the Russia-Ukraine front line. Additionally, North Korea reportedly rotated its special forces and guard posts along its border with China for 2 years during the pandemic, missing some of their regular training. Moreover, the deployment of North Korean troops was so rushed that it may take time for Russia to properly integrate them into its military. They were thrust into battle after learning a few basic military terms in Russian, potentially leading to problems with battlefield communications. From top to bottom, the North Korean military has not experienced live combat for decades. While soldiers may have had brief training in drone and infantry warfare, questions remain about how familiar they truly are with these tactics. Several North Korean casualties were attributed to Ukrainian missile and drone attacks, as well as training accidents. Lee Song-kyun, a South Korean lawmaker, revealed after intelligence briefings that significant weaknesses exist in the North Korean ranks. Despite these staggering losses, the North Korean regime continues to pursue its military ambitions. The JCS expressed concern about the growing threats posed by Pyongyang, emphasizing how these developments could escalate tensions on the Korean peninsula. This could lead to an increase in the North's military threat to us, the JCS warned, highlighting the potential geopolitical consequences of North Korea's military ambitions. Meanwhile, the South Korean government has changed its stance on military support for Ukraine, with President Yoon Suk-yeol noting the possibility of providing arms to Kyiv. This announcement marks a significant departure from South Korea's historic non-interventionist policies, which aimed at addressing perceived threats from North Korea's growing military capabilities and cooperation with Russia. On the diplomatic front, North Korea has reacted defensively to allegations of military support for Russia, denouncing statements by the U.S. and its allies as reckless provocation. The regime has characterized criticism of its troop deployments as attempts to undermine its sovereignty and cooperative ties with Moscow. These developments point to the growing geopolitical complexity affecting not only the dynamics of the Ukrainian conflict but also the security situation in East Asia. This situation has prompted discussions on enhanced cooperation between South Korea and Ukraine, particularly as both nations assess the strategic threats posed by North Korea's military intervention. Last month, officials from Seoul and Kyiv agreed to deepen security ties, seeking to address the multifaceted challenges posed by North Korea's active military support for Russia. Experts continue to monitor the evolution of North Korea's military intervention, as the losses suffered by its troops reinforce the risks and unpredictability associated with the regime's military gamble. The intersection of North Korea's battlefield resurgence and its quest for diplomatic influence amid international isolation presents significant challenges for regional security. The situation remains fluid as geopolitical risks continue to rise against the turbulent backdrop of the Ukrainian war. The latest reports suggest that Kim Jong-un is preparing to send more troops to Russia, seeing Europe's biggest conflict since World War II as an opportunity to advance his military and diplomatic goals. U.S. officials have stated that it was North Korea's idea to send troops to help Russia. Western officials report that North Korean troops have been heavily involved in Russia's war with Ukraine, with some being killed. When North Korean troops began arriving in Russia this fall, some Western officials believed it signaled that the Kremlin was in urgent need of more soldiers. However, U.S. intelligence agencies assessed that the deployment was North Korea's idea, not Russia's. American officials say President Vladimir Putin immediately embraced the idea. American officials have said that it is unclear how effective the North Korean troops have been. North Korea has sent its best-trained special forces into battle, but many of them appear to be malnourished. Moreover, North Korean soldiers lack real combat experience. A senior Ukrainian official stated that North Korean troops are not fully integrated into the Russian fighting force and, at times, appear to act independently, which increases the risk of casualties. At the same time, North Korean soldiers receive better medical treatment than their Russian counterparts, according to the official. The wounded are often taken directly to larger hospitals in the city of Kursk, bypassing smaller, lower-quality village hospitals closer to the battlefield. American officials said that it was important for Russia to have the support of North Korea and Iran, both of which have provided military aid during the war. This support has allowed Russia to maintain an intense artillery barrage on the front lines and to pressure Ukrainian cities with drone strikes on critical infrastructure. The casualty rate has increased over the past month as Moscow has moved to retake Kursk and claim more territory in eastern Ukraine. Russia is also rapidly depleting its remaining military equipment. At the same time, Russia is trying to conceal the presence of North Korean military personnel by forging documents. This was reported by the press service of the Ukrainian Special Operations Forces, based on a large number of military documents seized by the Special Forces. The real names of the North Koreans killed, according to the decrypted data, are different. These military cards do not contain stamps or photographs. The names are written in the Russian style, and the place of birth is listed as the Republic of Taiva. Additionally, the signatures of the document holders are in Korean, which reveals the true origin of these soldiers. This incident further confirms that Russia is resorting to all means to hide its losses on the battlefield and conceal its foreign presence, the SOF press service said. The documents contain numerous inconsistencies, such as missing photographs, mandatory entries, sequence numbers, signatures, and seals. In short, as the war approaches its third year, both sides have suffered enormous losses. President-elect Donald J. Trump has promised to pressure both Ukraine and Russia to reach a peace agreement. As a result, some Russian officials believe that their high losses will only continue for a limited time. However, the windows for taking more territory are closing. In the end, North Korean support has been ineffective in turning the tide of the war. It is even believed that Vladimir Putin may be more willing to compromise if he sees this outcome. So, what do you think about this issue? We would be glad if you share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and like the video to support us.